Gentlemen, remove your caps.
Let us pray. Eternal God, whose kind providence has led us to this glad day, we pause to express gratitude. We give you thanks for each graduate and the high achievement which this day symbolizes. We lift up our thanks for the hopes of the families, the devoted efforts of the teachers, and the abiding confidence of the community. May today be truly a commitment into larger journeys of learning and higher levels of experience. May each be equipped to meet life triumphantly, guide them in their decisive decisions. May they have the courage to love the pure and to seek the truth. In your name we pray, amen.
Gentlemen, replace your caps. Class, be seated.
First one on the left. Oh, she took it. This is supposed to be the one on the left. After the signal. This is good. Yes.
Hello. It's great to see all of you here today. The principal's party, teachers, administrators, parents, relatives, friends, and last but not least, my fellow students, the class of 1990. I have a quote from Dwight D. Eisenhower that pertains to what I would like to talk to you about. Eisenhower once said that Americanism is deep involvement in the destiny of men everywhere. Involvement is the key word. It is something that will affect not only your own future, but also the future of the world. In high school, getting involved means joining organizations. In life, getting involved means participating in society. Just like joining a club, joining society requires making an effort and contributing time to become a member. Involvement begins in your own community. Then it expands to your country and finally the world. Perhaps one day it will even be possible to get involved within the context of the universe. History has shown us that it is impossible for human beings to be totally uninvolved with one another. Before World War II, the US practiced a policy of isolationism. The people wanted no part of the war. In 1940, we started getting involved by supporting Great Britain with funds. On December 11, 1941, Germany and Italy declared war on the US. We were forced to get involved. Indeed, man cannot live alone. We rely on each other and influence each other. Isolationism is not viable for society. The alternative is involvement. And it is not a bad alternative. Just being fully involved in your own life will keep you ahead of the isolationist. Aldous Huxley once defined experience as not what happens to a man, it is what a man does with what happens to him. In other words, everyone should be involved in their own development. Pushing yourself to do your best encourages growth. If you are going on to college, you will succeed in your studies if and only if you are an active learner. As Ralph Waldo Emerson said, college is not an education, it is the means of an education. Involvement is also important for those of you who aren't going to college. Entrepreneurs are examples of people who struggled to the top on their own. No one was around to force them to be involved in their own career. They were committed to their future. However, I said before that involvement is also crucial for the future of the world. One simple way to improve the state of the world is to get involved by volunteering. The world is full of problems. The economy, drug abuse, poverty, crime, the environment, and diseases. You can make a difference in the world just by giving time to help out. Being a volunteer is personally rewarding as well. A thank you is one of the greatest gifts a person can receive. Volunteerism is not the only way to be involved. Emerson argues that words are also actions, and actions are also a kind of words. You can participate in the development of society by expressing your opinion on issues that are important to you. The United States is a democracy. The government relies on the people to determine what to do. The people hold the power, but only 50% of registered voters went to the polls in 1988. The only way to get the government to do what you want is to be involved by speaking your mind. Being involved in governing the country can happen in your hometown or within the entire country. Getting involved in the community of the world requires something more: travel. People learn from other people. Travel allows you to learn about the different ideals and cultures of other parts of the world. At the same time, the people that you meet will learn from you. Perhaps the greatest benefit of being involved in the world is that we can learn of other people's mistakes before we make them ourselves. Traveling is a chance to be a participant in the large society of the world and further the progress of humankind. I see before me the class of 1990, and also everyone associated with those students: parents, relatives, friends, teachers, and administrators. By their presence at today's ceremony, these people have shown that they want to be involved. And just like them, we students will become adults who have a responsibility to contribute to the community. As parents, we may have a responsibility to contribute to the school. Joining the PTA or attending school events may seem insignificant, but they form the foundation for the future. Progress brought about by the current generation can be attributed to the previous generation's involvement in creating the base for the future. If we succeed in making the world a better place to live in, we have the adults who are here today to thank. However, no one's help will do any good if you do not make an effort yourself. JFK once said that there are risks and costs to a program of action, but they are far less than the long-range risks and costs of comfortable inaction. Remember his words tomorrow and every day after that. Get involved for your hometown, your country, your world, your fellow man, and the future. Thank you.
Family, friends, guests, faculty, and administration, welcome to our very special day. Today is a meaningful day for us as we not only reflect upon our past 4 years, but thank those who have helped us, our family, friends, teachers, and the entire staff of Chelmsford High School. Our stay here is ending, and we're moving on to new challenges. It has been 4 years, although the time has gone by very fast. We can no longer create memories of our high school years, but we will always have them with us. Class, it is important for us to cherish these memories, to look back and realize what we had here was the best of laughs, the best of times, and the best of friends. You are a very special group of people. Always strive for your dreams. You all deserve them. Mr. Betsis, would you please join me at the podium? Mr. Betsis, on behalf of the class of 1990, it gives me great pleasure to present to you with this check. The class wishes that this money goes into the activity fund. The class of 1990 is happy to donate this gift to Chelmsford High School as a token of their appreciation.
Thank you, Nicole, and members of the class of 1990. It's going to be a pleasure for me to make the donation to the Student Activity Fund so that we can ensure that the activities will still be a vital part of our school life. Thank you.
I would now like to invite Joshua Safdie, president of the class of 1991, to the podium. Josh, it is my pleasure as president of the class of 1990 to present to you this gavel, the symbol of authority and responsibility. The class of 1990 wishes you and the class of 1991 the best of everything in all your endeavors. We sincerely hope that you and your class will follow and uphold the fine traditions that have been established over the years at Chelmsford High School.
Nicole and graduates of the class of 1990, on behalf of the class of 1991, I am very honored to accept this gavel. I hope that we as a class will be as successful in our accomplishments as you as the class of 1990 were in yours. Speaking for the entire class, I congratulate you on your successful journey thus far and wish you the best of luck and happiness in the future. You will be sadly missed. The class of 1991 respects the fine example you have set for us and will follow it with pride. May you always find peace and comfort in remembering the good times and good friends you had here at Chelmsford High School. Good luck to you all. Thank you.
Our speaker today is Ron Burton, former star running back for the New England Patriots, has been one of the nation's most popular and dynamic and motivational speakers for more than 2 decades. In addition to his duties at the John Hancock, Ron is a key spokesman for Students Against Driving Drunk, and owner-operator of the Ron Burton Training Camp, a non-for-profit sports camp for teenagers. A successful leader in college and pro football, business and community affairs, Ron will deliver a powerful, intensely personal message about how love, strong family values, and plenty of hard work can overcome any handicap. Tens of thousands of people have heard Ron's message of hope, determination, and optimism. Said one audience member, "He makes you feel good about yourself and about what you can accomplish." Born in Springfield, Ohio, July 23, 1936, Ron was an All-Ohio and All-American high school football star in 1954 and 1955. He received 47 scholarships from colleges throughout the country. He selected Northwestern University and became one of the university's all-time football greats. In 1959, he was named NCAA Back of the Year, a Heisman Trophy Award candidate, and was a unanimous selection for College All-American. Ron graduated from Northwestern in 1960 with a Bachelor of Science degree. That year, he was the first draft choice of the Philadelphia Eagles, the Ottawa Club of Canada, and the fledgling New England Patriots. Ron selected the Patriots and stayed there as a running back for 6 years until retiring from football in 1966. Prior to joining the John Hancock Community Relations Department, Ron was part of the company's sales force, a $1 million producer, and a member of the President's Honor Club. In addition to his responsibilities for John Hancock, Ron is director of the Ron Burton Training Camp in Hubbardston, Massachusetts. This not-for-profit sports camp on 300 acres in rural Massachusetts features programs for teenage boys and girls and has received high praise from parents, coaches, teachers, and campers alike. Ron's other civic and community affiliations include Shriners Burns Hospital for Crippled Children, Public Relations Committee, Vice President, Greater Boston Council, Boy Scouts of America, President, the Northwestern University Club of Boston, Vice President, 10 Club of Boston, Advisory Board for the Salvation Army in Boston, Chairman of the Framingham Arthritis Foundation, former State Commissioner for the Highway Safety for Youth, National Wheelchair Marathon Committee, board member, the Massachusetts Association for the Blind, member of the Executive Board, and the Community Relations Chairman of the New England Region, the Boy Scouts of America, and State Coordinator, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Ron and his wife, Joanne, the parents of 5 children, live in Framingham, Massachusetts. One of Ron's 5 children will be graduating today, and Ron wishes to apologize to the class that it will be necessary for him to leave to attend his son's graduation immediately after his talk. It is a pleasure to present Ron Burton.
Thank you, Dr. Mullen. I want you to know that this is an extreme pleasure for me to be out here this afternoon or this morning for several reasons. I had the pleasure of talking to Mr. Bestis about the community of Chelmsford, which I know a little bit about. You are so blessed. I understand there's so much talent in this class, it's frightening. You have so much. And I say that, I get excited about it, and then I think about the moms and the dads and the grandparents. Oh, how blessed you are to be living in a community like Chelmsford. You have so much, others have so little. What a blessing. And when I was putting together a collection of thoughts as to what I would speak on this morning or this afternoon, I chose a subject that I could feel most graciously. The title was simple: Meeting Today's Challenges. Not that I consider myself one who have met the challenges, but I know a few people who have. And when I was putting together this collection of thoughts as to what it means to meet today's challenges, it was complicated, mainly because I had too many places. For a moment, I decided to start at the beginning. The things that have played a major role in my life, my home, my experiences, my beliefs, and what makes one strive to meet today's challenges. One of the greatest things that ever happened to me is the fact that I came from a very religious family, and a happy one. And I grew up in an atmosphere where a lot of good things were happening. At the same time, I grew up in an atmosphere that if you wanted something to happen, you got to make it happen. There are things in this world that money cannot buy, and no one can give them to you. One is a profile of courage, and the other is the will to succeed if you're going to meet today's challenges. When I was growing up many years ago in my little hometown of Springfield, Ohio, I was part of a very exciting atmosphere. And it was created by a guy named Woody Hayes, who was coach of Ohio State. And the reason why he was able to create such an exciting atmosphere back in those days, Ohio State used to win every week. And winning became synonymous with the state of Ohio. And I grew up in this atmosphere where, every week was another win for him, and everything was very exciting, and everything was very competitive. And we were all trying to figure out just what it was all about. As one of my very close friends described it, he said, Ron, we're all in the race to the stars. He said, the sky's the limit, and only the best will succeed. And I asked him what he meant. He said, only the best. And he walked away, and I worried a great deal during my early days. I knew that I had to get better. I knew that I had to get faster, and I knew that I had to get stronger. And I was told that the only way I could accomplish many of these goals is I had to do a lot of running, a lot of extra work. I want you to know you're looking at a young guy. I still like to think I'm young for some reason or other. I used to lose at everything I ever participated in. You name it, I lost at it. And when I was growing up, I developed two bad habits. One, I was always losing, and the other, I would always cry when I lost. And because I wasn't very good at the beginning, my tears and my losses created quite a disturbance at my home. And I'll never forget my mom calling me to her side one day after I chalked up another loss. The tears are flowing. She said, Ron, I'm not going to allow you to disrupt our household every time you participate and lose. She said, you can't cry every time someone beats you. And I looked up to my mom with a great deal of sadness in my eyes. I said, Mom, I try not to cry, but some of the kids I play against are very cruel. One of the toughest acts to be a part of is to watch one of your so-called friends or one of your colleagues that you play with or against, watch them snicker behind your back or poke fun at you. Sometimes laugh right out loud because you can't catch the ball the way they can catch it, or you don't have their speed, or you can't play the game at their level. And sometimes some of the comments and the hurt would cut into me so deeply that the tears would just flow. And my mom said, Ron, you got a very serious problem, but you're going to have to do one or two things. She said, Ron, you're going to have to stop playing, or you better start winning, because I'm not going to allow you to continue on this way. And I was taught then that success was a journey, not a destination. I said earlier, I worried a great deal during my early years because I knew that I had to get better. If I were trying to get you to visualize how bad I was at the beginning, very difficult for me to get you to focus in on the total picture. But when I was in the 7th grade, and I'm saying this to say something else, I went out for football at my junior high school with 45 other young guys. And you got to picture this scene. In the state of Ohio, in my little hometown, football is the only game in the town. We don't have soccer and hockey and all the various sports you have here in the East and here in Chelmsford. As I was saying, I went out for football with 45 other young guys, and do you know, I was the only kid in the school that they refused to give a football suit to. You should have seen me cry that day. And that's heavy, because it doesn't seem right that that many young people would go out for anything and you leave one out. I cried so much, went back to my elementary grade school coach, and I pleaded with him to ask the junior high school coach to please give me a football suit. And after a week of feeling sorry for Ron Burton, they decided to give me a football suit, and for 2 years, I never got into a football game. And that's heavy. It's heavy because it makes no difference what game in the world of sports you participate in. Many times, in the last 10 or 15 seconds of a game, many of the games have already been won, or a game has already been lost, and it really doesn't make any difference if you allow a kid in the last 10 or 15 seconds of a game that has already been won or lost. My 7th grade year went by, and I never played a moment. My 8th grade year went by, same story. It wasn't until the last 35 seconds of the last game of the season of my 8th grade year, season's over, 35 seconds left to go on the last game, and the coach calls my name. And I want you to know, he did not call my name for some unknown reason. He started to find himself a Ron Burton. The fact of the matter was, the other 3 guys who played in front of me all got hurt. I was the only guy left to go in the game. I went into the game, carried the ball on the last play, and I carried the ball for 10 yards. Now, 10 yards is really not that far, but it turned out to be probably the most important 10 yards of my life, because after the game was over, because it was the last game of the season, you had high school coaches busy surveying the crop that's coming up to high school. And one of the high school coaches came over to me. He said, Ron Burton, he said, I would like to talk to you. Do you know that was the first time anyone has ever asked to talk to me about anything? He said, Ron, he said, we were watching you on the last play of the game. He said, you seem to have something that some of the other kids don't have. And I thought to myself for a moment, I said, I'd like to know what that is. I haven't been in a ball game in 2 years. He said, you seem to have a great deal of courage and determination. He said, but you're not very big. He said, we were watching you when you were running around in. He said, you know, you're not very fast either. He said, you know, you're really not that good. Well, I knew all that. That's why I've been on the bench for so long. But he said to me, he said, Ron, he said, you ought to think very seriously when the summertime comes to get up early in the morning and start running. He said, you're going to find yourself getting better. And I asked him, how far should I run? He said, you ought to run 6 or 7 miles. I said, well, how often should I do that? He said, you should do that 5 days a week. Do you know, he was talking to a young kid who was willing to pay any price on earth to get better. Up until that point in my life, I had lost. At everything I've ever participated in, I've been laughed at, I've been joked about, I've been made fun of, never seen daylight, and the only thing I've ever encountered for me and my colleagues was a hurt. I got out of my 8th grade year on June the 22nd, June the 23rd. I got up at 4:30 in the morning, on the road at 5. I used to run 7.5 miles, 5 days a week. And a lot of times people say, well, Ron, how long did you do that? I did that for 12 straight summers. Funny thing happened. Because of all the running, I found myself catching up to some of the kids who used to beat me at will. By the time the summer was over, I had passed a lot of them by. Now, how you find this out in the state of Ohio, it's a simple process, and it may have been due to a piece of legislation that the coach of Ohio State had passed down to all the schools. But on the first day of practice in the state of Ohio, before anything else is done, everyone's lumped together for a 1-mile race. And the purpose of the mile race is to give the coaches some type of indication, the condition everyone's in. I'll never forget the day because I won the mile. First time I ever won anything in my life. But not only did I win it by over 200 yards. It looked like no one else was in the race except me. And there's a reason for that. Because there was a group of kids in my neighborhood. There's always, maybe in my neighborhood, this wouldn't happen here in Chelmsford. In my neighborhood, there's always a group of guys who are better than everyone else. But there's not so much bad about being a guys that are better. But there's a group in my neighborhood, these guys, they take the whole summer off. They go to bed late. They get up late. They don't miss one party. The whole summer is one big celebration. The problem with that group is they've never been on the bench before, and they only start getting in shape until a couple weeks ahead of time, and I had 2 months on them. The first week of practice in the state of Ohio is nothing but a week of running and conditioning. Coaches are trying to figure out who's in the best shape, who has the most speed. And I'll never forget that week as long as I live, because that week I won every race. And after a week of winning all the races, the coach called me over. He was trying to figure out where I came from. And I tried to explain to him I've been on this team for 2 years. And no one knew or cared if I was there or not. It wasn't until I was in the 9th grade I ever had an opportunity to ever play sports. But then I had 2 other problems. One is the fact that I had no talent. Now, people have trouble with that because I end up winning a great deal, but I had no talent. I had gotten faster and stronger, but I couldn't do anything. I had another serious problem. I was known as a square. And I want to let you in on something. In my hometown, if you have no talent, and if you're a square on top of it, you could be in for a long afternoon. I was a square because of my grandmother. You know, anytime I see grandparents out here, and I'm always looking for grandmothers and granddads. You have no idea what that means to me because my grandmother saved me. But my grandmother, the reason I was a square is that my grandmother was a gospel preacher. And Father Costello, Reverend Costello, and Father Craig, you appreciate this. I used to spend every Sunday all day in church. Now, I want you to know something. It's really not cool to go to church on Sunday when you're in the 9th and 10th and 11th and 12th grade. It's not in my neighborhood. I used to go to church every Sunday and I had no problem with it because that was the only place I could go where everybody was good to everybody. Every time I dealt with my teammates and my classmates and the guys on the corner, every time I turn around, someone makes fun of the shoes that I have on or the clothes that I'm wearing, where I live, or how I play the game. I go to my grandmother's church and I'd watch these people come together and I'd watch the giving. I watch people share with one another. I watch the caring and I'd watch the love flow. I go back to my teammates and my classmates and the guys on the corner. I watch the pushing and the shoving and the name calling and the teasing. And I watch people hurt one another for no reason at all. And I go back to my grandmother's church, and I'm back to the same scene where the giving and people sharing one another, and I'd watch the love flow, and I made a decision. I don't want to be with my classmates anymore, my teammates. It's too hard. It's hard to be around people who say things and do things that hurt you for no reason. You're so fortunate here in Chelmsford to not be part of that atmosphere. It's a funny thing about that. See, I know what it is to really be hurt. I know what it is not to have anything. I know what it is not to have that many people care about you. When I was growing up, I only had 3 people in the whole state of Ohio that cared anything about Ron Burton. And that was my mom, my dad, and my grandmother. I had trouble with my brother. I had trouble with my relatives. I had trouble with my neighbors because, you know, when I was growing up, you know what they used to call me when I was growing up? They say, here comes nothing. Just call me nothing. It brought me to my knees every single time. The tears would flow. Imagine someone said, here comes nothing. I said, why do you do that every time you see me? You said that last week and the week before. Why would you do that? They thought it was a big joke. And the tears would just flow. I've probably shedded more tears than all of you collectively in the class of 1990. And that's heavy. And I hope that no one ever goes through that. But I kept running. And I stayed in my grandmother's church. And I kept getting faster. And I found out something. I found out that if I was running and working when everyone else is running and working, I found out I could stay even. But I found out that if I'm working and I'm running when everyone else is sleeping, if I do it long enough, I got to beat them. And then I really started to go to work. It's a funny thing about that. High school football in the state of Ohio is big business. You know, one time I used to go to bed every summer night, and this is heavy, and I don't expect you to identify with this, and that's okay. I used to go to bed every summer night at 7:30. Oh, by the way, that's the only way you can get up at 4 and run 7.5 miles. And I had no problem with that. And people say, well, how can you have that much dedication to go to bed 12 straight years at 7:30 at night? I did that every summer. And people say, well, you know, how can you have that much dedication? And the only thing I say to you, you've never lost as much as I've lost, and you've never been hurt as much as I've been hurt. And I hope that no one goes through that. But high school football in the state of Ohio is big business. Sophomores don't play on the varsity, but they change the rules as they go along to accommodate whatever circumstances they're faced with. And what I meant by that, because of the first day of practice, the same scenario takes place as the 1-mile race. And that's the only time sophomores, juniors, and seniors are together is on the first day. I never forget that day again because I won the mile again. Again, I beat every junior and senior by over 200 yards because they'd all taken the summer off. Not only did I make the varsity as a sophomore, I made the first team of the varsity, which is unheard of. And it seems like all the dark clouds that used to hang over Ron Burton's head started to fade for the first time. For the first time, people stopped laughing at me because I'd gone by them. It's the funny thing about that. My sophomore year was one of the greatest years I've ever had, not because of what I achieved or accomplished, because kids don't laugh at me anymore. My sophomore year was the greatest, and yet it was my hardest. It was my hardest because a week before Christmas, after the season was over, my mom died. And when my mom died, it almost decimated my life. And when my mom died, my dad got sick. Had to go live with his brother. I only had 3 people. I'm now down to 1, my grandmother. Oh, by the way, my grandmother doesn't work. Even today, I couldn't tell you how my grandmother fed Ron Burton, but I really do know. Do you know people who should give her food to give to me so I can be fed? That is so scary. I hope that no one ever experiences anything like that. But my grandmother really saved me. Now, you got to listen to this because this is very important to you, and I hope that I can walk out of here because I listened to the principal, Mr. Best, talk about this great class of 1990. I guess from what I understand, and I'm listening to him talk to the superintendent, this 1990 class has got to be, from what I understand, the best class they've ever had. And I get excited about that. Now, you got to listen to me, what I'm saying. Before you start the celebration, listen to me. Let me tell you how my grandmother saved me. My grandmother, because she was a gospel preacher, she's the type of woman, if she caught you doing something wrong, she really didn't care who you belonged to, she's going to nail you big time. Okay? My grandmother caught 4 of my teammates on a corner on a Thursday night after the season was over. When they saw my grandmother coming, they put their beers behind them, tucked out their cigarettes, but it was too late. She caught them. And if they're alive today, they will still remember the scene because, you know, she really nailed them. The thing that disturbed my grandmother more than anything else, they were my teammates. My grandmother summons me over to her home the next morning. I live right across the street. She said, Ron, she said, I'm so disturbed. She said, I just caught 4 of your teammates on the corner last night. When they saw me coming, they tried to hide everything. She said, but I caught them. She said, Ron, she said, I hope and I pray that I never see, hear, or even a rumor that you've ever had a drink, that you've ever had a smoke, or tried one of those funny type of pills they call drugs. She said, because if you do, the only thing I can say is good luck to you. She said, because you're going to need it. She said, because you're going to lose. Imagine telling a loser he's going to lose some more. That's the only thing I've ever done was lose and hurt. I could write a whole book on the whole ramification of losing and hurting. I know the whole scene. I tell you the impact of my grandmother. You're looking at a guy. I represent a company in Boston called the John Hancock Insurance Company, and I'm in public relations. And I want you to know, nothing that I'm going to say is the intent to impress you at all. But my job is to travel around the nation. I'm at a dinner, a party, or a banquet 5 and 6 nights a week, 40 weeks out of the year, somewhere in the country. I want you to know there's no one in this whole graduating class of 1990 enjoys a party more than this guy right here. But I want you to know something else. You're looking at a guy, I have never tasted a drink. I've never had a smoke. I couldn't tell you what a drug looks like. And you know something? I hope that I can walk away from this graduating class, not only one, a lot of times I say I'd like to have one guy, one young lady. I hope that I can have a great portion of your class to never have a drink, to never have a drink. You know how I made it? I watch all my colleagues fall. You have so much brain power in this class. You have so much talent. You got moms and dads. You live in beautiful homes. You dress beautifully. You have so much more going for you than everybody ever dreamed of. Let me tell you what happened. I'll never forget, because of my lifestyle, my junior year, my coach called me and he said, Ron, he said, you've been very fortunate. He said, you just broken all of our high school records. He said, Ron, he said, you know, this has been good. He said, but you've created a problem in the town. I said, what he meant? He said, you get too much publicity. He said, every week they put your name in all the papers and your pictures. He said, and all they do is write about you all the time. He said, we don't want you to read all the things that they're saying about you. He said, because if you do, you're going to learn to like yourself too much and something's going to go wrong in your senior year. He said, either your head will no longer be on straight anymore, your feet will no longer firmly be planted on the ground, or you won't work as hard as you did before you got here, because now it's easy. He said, Ron, he said, we're hoping that you continue to work harder and get better, because you got another year to go. What my coach didn't know, was that some of the same guys who are presently on my team were some of the same ones that used to make fun of me 3 years ago. And if my coach thinks I'm ever going to give them another opportunity, if it's within my power, to make fun of Ron Burton and bring me back to my knees again, he has to be out of his mind. And then I really went to study it, and I really went to work. It's a funny thing about that. I'll never forget, after my senior year, the football season, I was called in by a group of newspaper reporters, and one reporter said to me, he said, "Ron, do you know why we're here?" And I said, "No, sir." He said, "Ron," he said, "you've been very fortunate." He said, "You know, you just broke on all your high school records." He said, "You know, you've just been selected on the first team of all Ohio again." He said, "But you've created some excitement in our town." And I asked him what he meant. He said, "Ron," he said, "you've just been selected All-American in high school." He said, "You're the first one our town's ever had." And one reporter turned to me, he said, "Ron, they're saying that you're the best in the state of Ohio." And I cried. I cried because I learned to be so thankful for this great gift of life. And remembering 3 years prior to that, no one wanted me on their team. And it wasn't until graduation time, this very moment in your time, right, at presently, my dad was at my graduation, but he was still very sick at the time. And my dad worried because and one reporter turned to me, he said, "Ron, they're saying that you're the best in the state of Ohio." And I cried. I cried because I learned to be so thankful for this great gift of life. And remembering 3 years prior to that, no one wanted me on their team. And it wasn't until graduation time, this very moment in your time, right, at presently, my dad was at my graduation, but he was still very sick at the time. And my dad worried because I spent so much time in the world of sports. But at graduation, he had realized that I had received 47 scholarship offers to all the major schools in the nation. And he came up to me, he said, "You know something, Ron?" He said, "Maybe you're not so bad after all." And from that day into this, I never cost my dad one nickel. And I never let him forget it. But I was very, very fortunate. I went to a place called Northwestern University because of a guy named Ara Parsegian and a guy named Bo Schembechler, who's the coach of Michigan. We'll make a long story short, in 2 years, we took the losingest team in the nation to #1 in the country. And all of our lives changed. And from that, you know, I was very, very fortunate to be All-American my junior, senior year, and then on NCAA back of the year, and run up for the Heisman Trophy, and on to the New England Patriots. And what has that got to do with meeting today's challenges? The point I was trying to make, any one of you young ladies, any one of you young guys, you can go as far as you like. The question is, what price are you willing to pay? There's a thin line between greatness and mediocrity. It's the ones who put forth the greatest amount of effort. You have no idea how far you can go if you do it right. You know what I had when I started? Absolutely nothing. You know, it's a funny thing about that. I believe that you can meet today's challenges, but you're going to have to do some of the things my grandmother talked about. She said, "Ron," she said, "many times we have to ask forgiveness for our failure, for our love for one another. We have a tendency to love those who love us, but we find it very difficult to love our enemies. We love those who are like us, and we keep our distance from those who are different. We love those who agree with us, and we reject bearers of different views." She said, "Ron," she said, "you got to conquer all your fears and your reluctance, because if you're able to do that," she said, "Ron, you're going to fly beyond your dreams. Because you got to be free to love everybody." She said, "Ron, you know what the greatest thing in the world is? You got to think about this one. This is hard. Is to love the people who don't love you, or share with someone who won't share with you, or give to those who won't give to you." You see, anybody can love those who love them, or share with someone who shares with you, or give to those who give to you. Anybody can do that. She said, "But if you ever capture the other scene, you're going to fly beyond your dreams." We talk about dreams. I get excited because, you know, when I was growing up, true story, I never remember having a dream until I was a senior in high school. You know, kids talk about dreams and things of that sort. I was so busy getting to the next day, never dreamed until I was a senior in high school, because a lot of good things started to happen at that point. We talk about dreams. 7 years ago, I did an assessment on my life, and I realized that every dream that I've ever dreamed, after I started dreaming, had become a reality except one. Now, that's a blessing. Imagining every dream you wanted to come true came true. That's a tremendous blessing. I tell you another greater blessing. I come out of the National Football League, I don't have a scratch. That is a blessing. You almost can't come out of the National Football League without a scratch. But let me tell you how I used to play the game. A lot of people believe when you play professional football, there's a certain way you got to play it. A little angry, Got to be a little, you got to go out there to really hurt people. You got to be mad. You got to be, play it awfully rough as you can. Wrong. Do you know I've never been angry in a football game? Do you know I'd never done anything to ever hurt anybody in a football game? Do you know if I was the first guy up off the ground, I used to reach down and pick up everybody else? I don't care what color jersey you had on. I used to pick up both sides. A lot of times I wasn't the first guy up because those big guys would be on top of me. But before I played every football game, I used to pray for both teams. I used to pray that no one got hurt. And isn't it ironic? I stand before you today, I don't have a scratch. I got my back hurt once, but a heel problem. I don't have a scratch like I never played, and I used to carry the ball 30 times a game. I used to be the guy they got to stop. I watched guys fall on my right, on my left, in front of me, behind me, and I'm the guy they're after. And I stand up here because I was so good to the guys on the field and off the field. I watched the guys I played against protect me in the game. That's heavy. That's true. One of these days, I'm supposed to put this in a book, but I watched it. You never heard of that one before. That's why I don't have a scratch. The guys I was playing against protected me because I treated them the same way I wanted to be treated. That's a blessing. Remember, I said every dream came true except one. Let me lay another thing on you. You won't be able to identify this here in Chelmsford. Picture this one. I was a senior in high school. My hometown got together, had a Ron Burton Day. Hometown. You know what the purpose of the Ron Burton Day was for? To buy me luggage and clothes. So when I went to Northwestern University, I would look like somebody. Imagine the town having to buy your clothes. I cried for 2 years. I cried because of the outpouring of love. I watched people give me who didn't have anything. I owe so much. I'll never be able to pay back all I owe. You know why I'm here today? If I can walk out of this auditorium, the football field, and just touch one of you. I'd like to have all of you, though, because you got so much going here in Chelmsford. I listened to Megan talk about someone making a difference. One person can make a difference, and every one of you should try. And I know you're going to do that, but everybody should try. You can make a difference. You have no idea how far you can go if you do it right. I had one dream that hadn't come true. And you know what that dream was? I want to have a little camp somewhere, not a big camp, a little camp. And what I want to do, bring in every type of kid in America at my camp. And what I want to do more than anything else, I want to keep them all summer, but the main thing I want to do is I want to put them to bed at 7:30 at night. And I want to raise them up I want to raise them up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I want to teach them how to run 7.5 miles before breakfast. I want to teach them never to drink. I want to teach them never to smoke. I want to teach them never consider a drug. I want to teach them if you knock somebody down, you be the first guy to pick them back up. I wanted that more than anything else in the world. But as fate would have it, 5 years ago, I bought a little village. I own a whole village. I own my own lake. I have a beautiful lake. That's not to impress you, because the village and the lake doesn't mean a hill of beans unless you can take it and help enrich the lives of others with it. And last year, we just come off our 5th year, and we had over 160 boys and girls out there for the summer, and we put them to bed at 7:30 at night. And we raised them up at 4 o'clock in the morning. They run 8 miles before breakfast, and we teach them never to drink, and we teach them never to smoke, and we teach them never consider a drug, and we teach you if you knock somebody down, you be the first guy to pick them back up. At our village, you're not allowed to swear at the village, and you can't tease at the village, and you can't say anything or do anything to hurt anybody at the village. We try to teach you how to win. You know how you really win? It's not how big or how fast you are, it's how you treat other people. He said, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowances for their doubting too, if you can wait and not get tired of waiting or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good or talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can deal with triumph and disaster and treat these two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knives to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you give your life to, broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, lose and start at the beginning and never breathe a word about the loss. if you can force your heart, your nerve, your sinew, to serve your turn long after they're gone, so hold on when there's nothing in you except the will that says to them, hold on. If you can talk to crowds and keep your keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose that common touch. If neither foes or loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much. If you can fill that unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of the distant run, yours is the world and everything that's in it. But what is more, you be a man, my son. I believe that if you're willing to pay the price, you'll find that only in America can each and every one of you pick and choose the road you want to travel to attain whatever you want most in life. Only in America can each and every one of you set your sights on a star, no matter how far away it may seem, pay the price, one day reach out and touch that star. You're good. It's all right here. You're real good. But as good as you are, you got to get better. Remember that one. You got to get better, because when you stop getting better, you're no longer good, and that you can't afford. And you know something? Josh and all of you, Megan, the whole, what lives you have ahead of you. You can make a difference. You lead by example, and I'm going to tell you something, you're going to really fly. I could talk full. I'm so excited being here today and to see all the moms and the dads. God, what a blessing this is. Do you take this for granted? I'm going to tell you something. I've been in places where there's no parents anywhere. You have so much. Others have so little. Don't make this a joke. And I know you're not going to do that. I'd like to say to the class of 1990, oh, what a blessing. Good luck to you. God bless you. And I pray that the wind will always, always be at your backs. Thank you very much.
We have a standing off.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron Burton. The class of 1990 has one other little piece of work to present you with an honorary diploma and welcome you into their roles as an honorary member of the Chelmsford High School class of 1990. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. All the best. Thank you so much. I love you. Bye-bye.
Reverend clergy, members of the school committee, Dr. Mullen, Mr. Betsis, people of the administration and the faculty of Chelmsford High, parents, friends, and my fellow members of the class of 1990. We've heard many times how graduation is a milestone, how it is an ending and a beginning, how a new life begins for us after graduation day. But we have this idea that great resolutions and decisions concerning the rest of our lives can only be made at turning points such as graduation. This is not true. We should never procrastinate living the lives we choose. So if even this is not your graduation day,
Today is always a good day to rethink where you are headed. We don't need to have read Charles Dickens' novel, A Tale of Two Cities, to identify with its hero, Sidney Carton. Waste forces within him and a desert all around. This man stood still on his way across a silent terrace and saw for a moment, lying in the wilderness before him, a mirage of honorable ambition, self-denial, and perseverance. In the fair city of this vision, there were airy galleries from which the loves and graces looked upon him, gardens in which the fruits of life hung ripening, waters of hope that sparkled in his sight. A moment, and it was gone. Climbing to a high chamber in a well of houses, he threw himself down in his clothes on a neglected bed, and its pillow was wet with wasted tears. Sadly, sadly, the sun rose. It rose upon no sadder sight than the man of good abilities and good emotions, incapable of their directed exercise, incapable of his own help and his own happiness, sensible of the blight on him, and resigning himself to let it eat him away. Pitiful as he is, this man is just like most of us. He's like a man walking in a desert, suffering. He sees refreshing water and shade far off in the form of hopes, dreams, virtues, friendships, all the good things in life. But all of these comforting things are a mirage. Every time he gets close enough to pluck the fruit of life from a tree, the mirage vanishes and removes far off across the desert again. His life is a depressing battle against frustration. Think about what's going to happen in our lives after today as high school graduates. Some of us will get a job and settle into it right away. Some of us will go to college first, major in what is practical, get another diploma, and then fall into the first job that's available 4 years from now. But what has happened then to all the dreams and the hopes that we have today? What has happened to the book one of us was going to write, to the movement another was going to foster? What has happened to the trip someone here was going to take, to the cure that one of us was going to find, the cure to a terrible disease? If we allow these dreams to be lost, we are letting the waters of hope that Sidney Carton saw be muddied with the grind of an unfulfilling life. It is we who, through procrastination in realizing our dreams, drive away the good life like a mirage. The sun rises while Sidney Carton lies in his squalid room. The sun rising is a symbol of the indifference of time, which passes relentlessly and quickly. The emotion, then, that we should banish from our short lives is regret. Regret poisons all existence. Regret makes the oasis of virtue vanish from our reach. It is one thing not to realize that our lives are leading nowhere, but only animals can live like that. Sidney Carton, like all humans in his plight, is sensible of the blight on him. What a tremendous injustice to ourselves if we know that we aren't happy, but don't take any measures to make ourselves happy and spiritually healthy. All this, of course, is not to say that we should always be out to achieve our own ends. Life should not be so selfish as to allow us to be happy by enjoying the fruits of life privately all the time. Imagine now that you've done everything you wanted to do with your life. You've held public office, you've become fluent in a dozen languages, you've succeeded in saving the Brazilian rainforest by convincing McDonald's to raise their cows in a space station. Whatever is important to you. And now you are 78 years old. Ask yourself this question posed by Sidney Carton. If you could say, with truth, to your own solitary heart tonight, I have secured to myself the love and attachment, the gratitude or respect of no human creature. I have won myself a tender place in no regard. I have done nothing good or serviceable to be remembered by. Your 78 years would be 78 heavy curses, would they not? Okay, maybe saving the Brazilian rainforest was good and serviceable, but a human's worth in life is not measured by how much he loves, not even by how much he loves the world. A human's worth in life is measured by how much he is loved. Your 78 years would be 78 heavy curses if you had not experienced the joy of human friendship. By being a friend, we bring someone else closer to realizing their own dreams. Friendship breaks the bonds of mortality. If we are remembered in the heart of one other person, we can never truly die. Sidney Carton says to Charles Darnay, a young man both respectable and gentle, the total antithesis to Carton himself, "I wish that we might be friends, Mr. Darnay." This pleasantly innocuous seeming request leads to Sidney dying in his friend's stead at the guillotine. In this act of generosity, Sidney Carton realizes his good abilities and good emotions, and his life is given a beautiful purpose. Their friendship is a spark of light illuminating and ironically spawned by the darkness of the French Revolution. All of us know that our own era is as dark as has ever been known. But we, the class of 1990, are able to light the darkness with the spark of our character and our friendships, securing the fruits of life for ourselves by rejecting regret for hope, lethargy for positive action, and securing the fruits of life for other humans by being generous with our love. We can reach the mirage, and it won't vanish. Thank you very much, and good luck to all of you.
Prior to presenting the class of 1990 to Mrs. Wendy Marks, the chair of our school committee, I would like to present another honorary diploma this afternoon, this time to our superintendent of schools, Dr. William Mullen. Upon Dr. William Mullen's retirement, we want to also enroll him into the class of 1990 in Chelmsford High School and to wish him a happy, healthy, and long retirement. Dr. Mullen.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. I'm very proud to be a member of this class. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present 404 members of the class of 1990 who have fulfilled the requirements of the State Department of Education and the Chelmsford School Committee, to Mrs. Wendy C. Marks, the chair of the Chelmsford School Committee. Mrs. Marks.
It's truly a pleasure to represent the entire school committee in congratulating you, the class of 1990, in taking this step in the next phase of your lives. And I hope you will take to heart the theme of this afternoon. Focus on who you are, what kind of person you are, not merely what you will do with your life. I was told as soon as I stood up, you would get all excited because you would be invited up here to receive your last pass from Chelmsford High School, the pass that would let you out.
Which Donovan?
Anne Marie Donovan.
Allison Lynn Adamian. Kathy Anderson. Tracy Lee Batson. Constance Ann D. Bennett. Sandy Nadine Burkhoff. Rachel Ann Bigger. Kimberly Ann Baroyan. Renee Christine Karen. Karen Elizabeth Conrad. Jennifer Christina Cregan. Tracy Lynn Cuneo. Christina Marie Davis. Nicole Ann Demopier. Amy Nicole Durgay. Kathleen Ann Derry. Alicia Mary Duff. Ulrika Barbara Iserman. Tasha Ann Faulkner. Suzanne Lynn Foti. Michaela Cassandra Gallagher. Erin Stephanie Garnham. Patricia Ann Gavin. Michelle Rose Gerdoni. Allison Andrea Gillis. Laura Gomes. Jody Lynn Good. Brenda Sue Goodick. Nancy Marie Griffiths. Diane Rose Gringeri. April Cassandra Gunther. Christina Hapshe. Kristen Lynn Hockham. Paige Victoria Hookway. Catherine Isabel Kazauka. Heidi Lynn Keller. Shannon Marie Kennedy. Melissa Marie Nealon. Ellie Begina Kongsgrud. Jill Susan Landry. Carrie Ann LeClaire. Jennifer Ann Lepron. Allison Lee. Pamela Beth Lonergan. Christina Lynn McKenzie. Laura Ann Marcotte. Kimberly Ann Marcella. Carolyn Marie McCarthy. Anna Marita Minander. Heather Joy Miller. Maria Delma Moreno. Michelle Renee Morlock. Hannah Toby Needle. Julie Ann Nolan. Elizabeth Lee Obram. Kristen Erica Oakvist. Lisa Ann Podger. Paula Rancourt. Martha Catherine Reeves. Judy Ann Louise Regazio. Kristen Amy Robinson. Katrina Lee Russell. Therese Anne-Marie Savigny. Melissa Ann Skian. Christine Ellen Sloan. Catherine Elsa Stankard. Monique Andrea Stanton. Anne Mary Sullivan. Kelly Jean Sullivan. Meredith Ann Swisbin. Kathleen May Tennant. Tracy Lee Tompkins. Patricia Ann Trudell. Stacy Elizabeth Tyrell. Shay Ruth Varnum. Karen Lynn Wetmore. Christy Lynn White. Laurie Christine Witt. Julie Ann Grace Wright. Cynthia Ann Adler. Jennifer Lynn Anderson. Melissa Gail Bikini. Kerry Ann Baxter. Lee Ann Bernard. Christine Elizabeth Bezdeny. Pamela Marie Buchek. Melissa Ann Boyd. Mary Catherine Brooks. Susanna Lee Butler. Cynthia Ann Cantrell. Amy Rebecca Camasino. Megan Childs. Jennifer Ellen Conrad. Christina Ann Contardo. Melanie Jean Crocker. Alicia Geraldine Daly. Sarah Lindsay Dater. Shayla Catherine Dean. Tracy Ann Denisovich. Katrina Maria Dinsmore. Jennifer Lee Dion. Patricia Ann Donovan. Patricia Marie Dragon. Suzanne Marie Feely. Rebecca Gail Fisher. Erica Marie Frew. Marlene Ann Furtado. Stacy Lee Gilbert. Brenda Marie Ginsberg. Elizabeth Jane Hackaboard. Justine Ann Hersey. Kristen Elizabeth Higgins. Jessamine Celia House. Kristen Lynn Howe. Jennifer Lee Hum. Laura Lee Kent. Michelle Melissa Kursbergen. Christina Lou LeMagerie. Melissa Ann Lombardi. Jennifer Renee McPhail. Kelda Marie Main. Christine Martin. Donna Jean McDougall. Allison Evelyn McGinn. Wendy Jo Merrill. Melissa Lynn Mitchell. Susan Ellen Morris. Sarah Elizabeth Murphy. Barbara Marie Neville. Erin Elizabeth Noonan. Sharon Kathleen O'Grady. Kirsten Lee Overroy. Tammy Sue Peterson. Jennifer Phillips. Kimberly Cross Polay. Melissa Marie Pertel. Yaleen Lisa Ravenstein. Jennifer Carol Reed. Kristen Jean Riley. Linda Mae Rodericks. Julie Summers Russell. Elizabeth Dion Scoville. Dawn Renee Shields. Wendy Lynn Syria. Catherine Elizabeth Tobin. Kathleen Mary Trainer. Sharon Louise Tripp. Jennifer Ann Uberti. Catherine Ann Wells. Kristen Lee Wennerstrom. Susan Elaine Whitcomb. Susan Lynn Pooley. Wendy Leah Wilcox. Fiona Elizabeth Willis. Stacy Lois Witt. Kelly Ann Barbera. Amy Elizabeth Bessinen. Lisa Ruth Blackman. Bethany Lynn Bowles. Jennifer Lynn Bush. Laurie Ann Carson. Jennifer Jane Carter. Melissa Jean Cox. Christine Kungju DeCilio. Amanda Louise DePino. Michelle Lee DeVore. Kristen Marie Duell. Christine Ann Early. Jennifer Lynn Enos. Sharon Lee Erickson. Megan Victoria Evans. Laurie Michelle Forbush. Suzanne Judith Francisconi. Carrie Marie Friedlander. Tatiana Lynn Garofalo. Kristen Marie Gaudette. Gwen Marie Godick. Leah Marie Gonthier. Paula Jean Greco. Cheryl Ann Greb. Tara Kathleen Hamlin. Stephanie Lee Harris. Robin Lee Harvey. Michelle Higgins. Maria Lynn Iannotti. Teresa Carol Johnson. Andrea Lynn Jorgensen. Jennifer Lynn Kay. Stacy Lynn Kelly. Dana Lynn Kleiner. Karen Marie Kloppenberg. Kimberly Ann Lombardi. Kristen McLeod. Robin Jean Major. Tracy Ann Martino. Jennifer Lynn Maycock. Marina Malucci. Robin Ellen Newcomb. Lindsay Catherine Noonan. Karen Heather Olson. Heather J. Palmer. Chung Won Park. Amy Kristen Parker. Kimberly Jean Perry. Elena Marie Peterson. Deborah Elaine Robley. Christine Frances Riz. Janet Marie Salkins. Laura Ann Scott. Jennifer Marie Samard. Michelle Ann Tobin. Aaron Pauline Tress. Laurie Jean Tamula. Michelle Mary Vandekar. Anna Venegas. Maria Denny Wanborg. Julie Ann Weber. Kristen Lee Westgate.
Can I have a drink of water? Real quick. Thanks.
Thirsty what?
Yep.
What's up with this?
I'll add this one. That's the way it goes. Mark Christopher Abbott. Stephen Scott Allison. James Stephen Athanasoulis. Richard Robert Bell. Brad Richard Blake. John William Boisseau. Andrea Califato. Charles Douglas Caleri. Daniel Alexander Culkin. Kevin Dennis Casey. Darren James Caulfield. Anthony George Chamberis. Stephen John Clark. William Charles Considine. Randall Paul Couture. Brian Patrick Daly. Nathan Johnson Davis. Brad Allen Dillon. James Vernon Eschbaugh. Brett Matthew Fay. Michael Robert Flanagan. Christopher Justin Frediani. Michael Howard Frobies. John Charles Gibson. Craig Matthew Herlihy. Miles Jeff Hogan. Jason Ho. Young Shin. Kevin George Jackson. Scott Roy Johnson. Stephen Andrew Keltz. Scott Michael Laba. John Thomas LaBelle. Alexander Joseph Lacreta. James Dennis McGilvery. Eric Julius Magira. Craig Robert Manzi. William Mark Mast. Keith Edward McCarthy. Patrick Francis McGovern. Brian Michael McNeely. James Joseph Medeiros. Brad Michael Morgan. Michael Patrick O'Hara. John Lewis Overbeck. Eric Andrew Patnod. Thomas Frederick Peterson. Son Ba Pho. Lance Paul Pratt. Scott John Robillard. David Francis Saviano. Evan Edward Sheehan. James Joseph Silva. Kevin Michael Souza. Sean Michael Toohey. Michael James Vella. Mark Arthur Wheelbrenner. Chad James Woods.
Mark Pedro Emerson. Scott Douglas Anderson. Sean Michael Barry. John Edward Blimmel. Robert Andrew Boulay. Derek Richard Brown. Edwin Bull. Craig Michael Carpenter. Christopher Lee Chu. Christopher John Coro. Peter McClary Cressy. Scott Christopher Curley. David Robert DiGiovanni. John Edward Edmonds. Tarek Osama El Bayoumi. Matthew James Gallagher. George Henry Lewis Garnham II. Robert Paul Gillette. Sean Colin Gouldson. Robert Lawrence Gramer. Matthew John Grove. Steve Ha. Sean Patrick Harrington. Kurt Stephen Heinrich. Colin Edward Jones. Stephen Derek Judge. Andrew Michael Cackness. Robert Joseph LaPlaca. Sung Kwang Lee. Donald Joseph LaRich III. Charles James Maffio. Sean Michael Macurel. Michael Thomas McCurry. Brendan John Mungovan. David Andrew Newman. Stephen Edel O'Connell. Kevin William Oliver. Darpan Naren Parikh. Jason Thomas Maxwell Paulina. Michael Raymond Russell. Peter John Sabini. Matthew Burt Shapiro. David Owen Smith. Philip Stephen Smith. William Douglas Sparks. Brett Patton Stearns. William Joseph Supa. Duncan Bertrand Sutherland III. Karsten Turner. Robert Edward Tuttle. Walter Anthony von Fricken. Michael James Watson. Jonathan Poe Yee. Michael James Zillick. Sean James Becker. Chris Stephen Beeman. Jeffrey David Bilodeau. Jeffrey Allen Blodgett. Thomas Anthony Cato Jr. Robert Andrew Carey. James Frederick Soretta. Craig Scott Childs. William Christie. Matthew Francis Cody. Jason Van Conrad. Brian Thomas Corey. Charles Edward Craven Jr. Warren Curry. Neil Joseph Della Piana. Jean-Francois Georges Dion. Todd Eric Downer. Christopher Edward Drum. Matthew John Dufresne. Matthew Gilmore Fisher. Gaetano Tommaso Gangemi Jr. Gregory Michael Gilchrist. Frank Gouvet. Christopher George Gray. David William Hart. Robert Richard Hayes. William Joseph Higgins, Jr. Gregory Martin Hirsch. Brian Edward Howard. Charles Richard Humphrey, Jr. David Michael Kasparian. Kevin Michael Cohane. Don Sik Kim. Timothy Charles Lindsay. James Kenneth Lucas. Michael Anthony Lupoli. Peter Jason Marchand. Adam McGahn. Timothy James McLaughlin. Kevin Allen Mittler. Jonathan Stewart Moncrief. Robert James Moulton. John Edward Myers. Christopher Michael Naper. Joseph Allen Nelson. William James Nixon. Robert Morris Outwater. James Christopher Passon. Christopher Michael Phillips. Kevin Christopher Pollard. David Andrew Rawls. Richard Sartorelli. Timothy Robert Shea. J. Patrick Sheehan. Richard Michael Smith. Ross Nansen Snyder. Michael James Stack. Steve Allen Tassie. Tor Lee Trivers. Derek Michael Sakrinsis. Carl Thomas Wagner. Ian Charles Whittemore. Eric Marks Wickander. Reginald Dwayne Willis. Michael Raymond Woodlock. Joseph Jason Yee. Michael David Zimmerman. The president of the class of 1990, Nicole Christine DeBeekis.
Class, turn your tassels. Gentlemen, remove caps.
Let us pray. Lord God, in the late afternoon of these high school years, hear our voice to express our gratitude for the benefits we have received. We are grateful, O Lord, for every moment of our lives at Chelmsford High School, for the light and the lightness of our homes. You have cheered us in the hard times and in sadness. You have taught us most of all the goodness to understand the holy design of our lives. Give us strength to serve you with all our hearts. Give us the strength to pay the price. Most of all, grant us deep faith, hope, and love, liberty, justice, and peace. Grant this to all your children. Bless our human families, especially the parents, grandparents, the faculty, administration, most of all, this year's graduates of Chelmsford High School. We pray this in your name, you who live and reign, world without end.
Gentlemen, replace your caps. Congratulations.